Coming up now, we've got a presentation on sustainable landscaping success through a partnership between design, installation, and maintenance. And Jenn Simmons and Amy Palmer, both of Ruskin Gardens, will be. Amy joined her mother in the family business as a landscape design apprentice in 2000. She started the maintenance side of the business in 2001 after seeing so many of her mother's gardens falling apart from lack of care. Amy is a licensed landscape contractor, certified irrigation manager, has a BS in physics from UCLA, and is fluent in Spanish. Her background in business systems and software development gives the business a technical edge. Jenn Simmons is a third-generation San Jose, California native, growing up amongst the orchards of Santa Clara Valley and a family that loved gardening. Her personal passion was inevitable and cultivated. Jenn enrolled at and graduated from Foothill College in 2013 with an AS in environmental horticulture. Jenn began at Ruskin Gardens as an intern in 2011 and is the operations manager and senior garden manager. Amongst her talents are designing colorful containers, plant border design and maintenance, pruning, control of plant pests and disease, managing the crews, and an expert client communication. With almost 20 years of experience, Jenn has transformed Ruskin Gardens estate garden maintenance with Amy and Debbie for over 6 years. Please help me welcome Jenn Simmons and Amy Palmer of Ruskin Gardens.
Hello everyone. I'm happy to be inside today. I'm usually outside gardening, so I'm a gardener, so bear with me. Are you Jenn? Be able to speak. I'm Jenn Simmons, and let me introduce you to our team. So Debbie Ruskin started Ruskin Gardens about 40 years ago. She's a garden designer, and Amy started the maintenance business about 15 years ago. And it was in response to seeing the gardens that her mother created fall into disrepair. And as you said in my introduction, I started with Amy as a Foothill College intern in 2011. And now I'm the operations manager. So this gravel garden, and I should say we're a residential gardening company. So we have about 20 employees and about 30 weekly clients from Los Gatos to Hillsboro, and everything from a tiny garden to 5 acres. So this particular garden is located in Palo Alto and was designed by Bernard Trainer, which is now Ground Studio, and installed by Fox Landscapes. And this garden became the example of how Amy and I wanted to work. It was here that a philosophy was formed about what makes a garden successful. And that was, first and foremost, the success and sustainability of a garden is dependent on the quality of design and installation. So it's not just the weekly maintenance of a beautiful garden, it's a relationship that is formed between client, garden designer, contractor, and garden manager. In our experience, it doesn't matter how good of a gardener you are. We are great gardeners. But without a good foundation, the garden may not flourish, and there's nothing sustainable about that. So we applied our knowledge from that first gravel garden I showed you to other Bernard Trainer gardens, like this garden in Palo Alto Hills. Again, wonderful client. Great installation, interesting plants like Famicordus and Cygnus, which I'd never seen before when I started working for Amy, and little ollies. So sustainability to us is success in a garden. It's maintaining what came before us and protecting the resources that were used to create the gardens. This includes everything from the money that was spent by the client to the water that was used to establish the plants and trees, to the materials that were mined and delivered to the site. I think all of us can agree that gardens can easily become unsustainable. There are irrigation malfunctions, plants die, soil becomes tired and lacking nutrients. Trees become too dense, and roots choke out plants underneath and pop up into lawns. Sometimes, believe it or not, gardeners, our designers and architects make design decisions that don't always work in real time. But there are many factors that can pop up because the garden wasn't installed well or didn't have a good maintenance plan. So in our experience, we've seen that hiring quality people, paying them good wages, and using beautiful and quality materials is the best way to be sustainable. And to ensure the sustainability of a growing garden, we would need to curate a team of people with all kinds of specialties. These beautiful plants that you see in this garden in Hillsborough didn't just grow this way. They were thoughtfully selected and installed and also maintained by a team of skilled people. So what does it take? It takes a team. And garden maintenance sustains your client's investment into the future of their garden's health and maturity after the designers and the contractors have gone. But it doesn't just take a team, it also takes time. But that is Amy's part, and she will be talking about that. So, a good foundation, as I said, for garden maintenance begins with a core relationship between client, garden designer, or landscape architect. This relationship sets the foundation for what the vision of a garden will be and the budget to create the garden. The next important core role is the landscape contractor. In order for a garden to be successful, quality design and installation is a requirement. Next core member of the team is the garden manager. The role of garden manager is a member of the team that we believe is most important and not well understood and is often completely missing from the team. So, and we say, like, even if it's the homeowner, we recommend that someone on the team take the role of garden manager, and I'm going to explain what a garden manager does a little later. Another equally important role would be the irrigation manager, and we'll talk about this a little bit later. The additional roles of crew supervisor and gardener are well understood in garden maintenance. These are the people we see the most in the garden. They have a weekly relationship with the garden and play an integral role in the growth of the garden. The only misunderstanding is that we can't rely on them to do everything, no matter how good they are. I also wanted to touch on some of the other core team members that we've highlighted. We think the team would not be complete without an arborist. The arborist is very important. They keep large trees in check, but can also assist with smaller ornamental and fruit trees. They can help with pruning smaller plant material like small shrubs and foundation plantings. They can also give a fresh perspective on the garden and help the garden manager set up a tree schedule maintenance. It's getting more complicated. Okay. There are also other very useful members to the team. There's seasonal color, there's veggie gardeners, there's the guy that catches the moles and the gophers. There's the people that come in and spray for insects. There's just so many moving parts, I think all of us would agree. And then another important person are the landscape lighting specialists are great to have to come in and make tweaks. So this, of course, is like the dream crew. Like if you have all these people in your garden's gonna look awesome. But sadly, this is not typical. The typical team, this is what the typical team is. So typically, people expect the two-man crew to play all of those roles. We think this is why so many gardens fail, okay? It's not their fault. It's not a reasonable expectation. This is me when I started working for Amy. One of my guys took this picture of me. Anyway, okay, so this is what's often missing, and this is a very key role, and it's the garden manager. A garden manager should be able to take any crew of gardeners who've been working in a garden and help them be successful. And I'm going to give you a little overview of what we think the garden manager is and does. The garden manager drives the aesthetic because the primary relationship that's set up between the client and the garden designer, the garden manager needs to be a part of that, so that when those people are gone, well, the client's there, but once the designer moves on to their next project, there has to be somebody there that's sort of helping the crew see what that goal is. And training to be a garden manager comes from a lot of different sources, but you can take classes at Foothill, Merritt College, Cabrillo College. You can learn a lot from reading books, looking at magazines. Your past and present experience helps you become a better garden manager. And personally for me, it was going on lots and lots of garden tours. And APLD, CLCA, CNPS, Garden Conservancy, every year have a lot of garden tours where you can just see as many gardens as possible and start seeing what do gardens look like when they're mature. How are they cutting this? How do they deal with that? It's just very important, I think, to get out there. So personally, I didn't start out as a garden manager. I just wanted to work in gardens. I just wanted to be a fine gardener. But my love of plants and caring for them has helped me become a better garden manager. A garden manager also helps prioritize work and directs the crew. When I first started working for Amy, she said, when I was promoted to garden manager, she said, your main focus for today is to keep the crews busy. And for me, keeping the crews busy includes keeping the lists organized of work that needs to be done, keeping up with the timing of the work. So much about gardening is about timing, when things get cut back. When do you feed? When do you not feed? Fertilizing. When do you let there be pests, and when do you try to get rid of them? It just depends. When's it time to mulch? And then also too is once you know your crews, you know what crew members can do what tasks. So I think this is pretty self-explanatory as far as like the garden manager is really the communication between the client or garden designer or even the contractor to the crews. But also you are also communicating with the arborists and all the different subcontractors, like when they need to come back in. So many times I do walkthroughs after the fact with garden designers or architects and show them things that are working in the garden or that are not working in the garden. And then I can convey what we want to do to fix those things to my crew. And it just they love it. Like they just know, like, that's a hedge, it needs to be this tall. Over there, it needs to be this tall. This is supposed to be sculptural. This is supposed to be a ball. It just depends. The garden manager has a personal relationship with the client. And this is a major factor of what happens in the garden. They are the ones with the money. And it's important to keep an open and available dialogue. They're paying you to keep their garden alive. So it's very important to touch base with them a lot. So you're walking through with them the garden, you're giving them updates on the work, what to expect, what they're going to be seeing in the garden in the coming weeks. You know if they're having parties. You know what their color preferences are. You know problems that they may have with their garden or how they use their garden. Those are things that you can convey to the crew. And also just being available. I find like the client just wants to be able to text you and say, what about this? It's usually on Sunday when they're sitting in their garden, but it's just being available for that. So the garden manager should be able to troubleshoot problems, but the best gardens need an irrigation manager. Getting the irrigation right in the garden is a key role that is vital to the sustainability of a healthy growing garden. If a garden isn't thriving, we find that 9 times out of 10, it's either too much water, no water, or not enough water. Monthly visits from an irrigation manager help ensure that the systems are working effectively and correctly. They can map the site so that gardeners know where everything is. They are skilled and can fix problems on the spot. They can assess moisture levels. They find problems before they happen and avoid costly redos and plant death, which we all hate. So in conclusion for my part, after being a garden manager for 8 years, it's been great to be a member of a team. My respect for the craft of gardening and garden maintenance has grown over the years. As a garden manager, I know that to sustain a garden is to create a team of individuals united in horticulture, working toward a goal to help the garden flourish and grow. But, as I said, there is another aspect that is very important, and Amy is here to talk about that.
Jenn's an amazing friend and garden manager, and we're always looking for good garden managers. This is like our crowd of people, as well as irrigation managers. I wanted to quantify though for you guys. So when we said it takes time, we weren't just talking about the passage of years. I'm talking about the man hours that it takes to maintain a garden. Carrie's shaking her head. She's a maintenance person. So I wanted to quantify it for you guys. Obviously, these gardens that we're talking about are super high-end residential gardens, and not all people, including myself, have a budget to do something like this. But what I wanted to share with you guys is like, what's these fine gardening magazine gardens, what do those take? And then compare that to the mow and blow model. And then how do you improve a little bit for normal people on the mow and blow model? What to add in, what adds value? For all you designers, we definitely recommend, and we talk about to our clients, like, keep an ongoing relationship with your garden designer. They should be back in the garden once or twice a year. We love walking through the garden with you. It's not a lot of time, but it makes a big difference in terms of keeping focus. And we love having installation contractor relationship ongoing as well, because enhancement projects come up. The garden changes over time, and we can't do everything either. We don't try to be installation contractors. The garden manager, so this is going to be for a 1 acre property. I'm just sharing with you guys in our experience, what it takes for these big gardens. This took me 15 years of trial and error to figure out. And I do know that like other companies that do the level of service that we do, the amount of time is comparable. The garden manager for a 1 acre property, it's not that much time, 4 to 8 hours a month, but maybe in 2 hour increments, something like that. But consistency. The irrigation manager for us is about the same, another 4 to 8 hours. Again, not a huge amount of time, but really makes the big difference. The crew supervisor and gardener are putting in the most time of everybody. For a 1 acre property, our default would be 2-man crew, a half a day per week. So that comes out to being about 16 hours in a month. Some clients want it more clean or more perfect, so up to 32 hours a month. That is the bulk of the work, and that is also the bulk of the budget. So in terms of how do you improve on the mow and blow model, it's really adding in those other skilled roles. The arborist might come typically like 1 or 2 days per year with maybe an 8-man crew, or just totally depends, but up to maybe 4 days if they came twice a year. The specialist really kind of depends. A lot of our gardens in the hills, if we are trying to keep after gophers, you need them to come once a week, but the other people, it's really nominal, not a lot of time. So if we look at the total, this is about 40 to 100 man hours per month. So 40 is like more of the typical. So 40 man hours per month. So when we compare that to a mow and blow model, if you just cut to chase down the total, it's typically 12 man hours per month for a 1 acre example. We do see competitive bids come across our desk, so this isn't just a guess. So that's a factor of 4. So the budget is also a factor of 4, which is just totally unaffordable to most people, which is totally fine with us. We're not snobs. I couldn't afford all of those hours in my garden, not that I have a 1 acre garden. But the reason why I illustrate this is part of our job is to set expectations, like what's possible. And if you are going to go the mow and blow route, like, look, it's not a lot of time, even if they're really super skilled people, they're not going to be able to finish everything that needs to be finished. So what can you do to improve on mow and blow? We just wanted to add these tips, which is the number one thing I would say is hire maybe the installation contractor to come in twice a year and do an irrigation check. That's just something that, like, the regular crews there, you're trying to get all your weekly work done, even if you know how to do irrigation, to stop and do an irrigation check, which typically takes a block of time. They're just never going to do it. You really have to send somebody else there just to do the irrigation check. And that's not expensive if you look at your water bill. Like, your water bill, you're going to make your money back up in your water bill. So that's totally time well spent. Use your arborist more than just to trim trees. Use them as a resource to consult. They usually are typically trained in horticulture and know pest and disease. They can prune smaller scale stuff, and it's a really typical complaint to say all of my plants are bald and boxed or whatever. The arborist has really good pruners, so they can work on smaller scale material. Add a winter cleanup and do your compost and mulch at least once a year. That really makes a huge difference in a garden too. Even if you just like catch it back up, do the overgrowth pruning and get it cleaned up once a year. Or, and then finally, just identify someone who can play that garden manager role, and that might be the landscape designer if you can educate them if you're interested in doing that. It can be the client themselves, or it can be what we call a solo fine gardener, which is typically someone who's a fine gardener working by themselves who would be, come and augment the crew and maybe give some direction. Okay. So we love talking about this. This is the first time we've done this, so it's a little, new for us. But so we love your feedback. We love to learn from you guys in the room. We know that there's millions of ways to do gardening, not just one right way. And we do want to keep doing this talk if there are interested audiences, and we are hiring as well. So just wanted to mention that. Thanks a lot. Questions?
Okay, because it cross-pollinated, Jacqueline, you get a mic too. Behind you.
Jen.
Hi, so just a quick question. Do you have a reference list of quote-unquote fine solo gardeners?
So
to recommend
Carrie's right here in the front row. Who else is a solo fine gardener? Anybody else in the room? Another one back here. So what happens with solo fine gardeners, I don't know if you guys agree with this, but by definition you're solo and there aren't very many, there's such a demand for maintenance. Typically they are booked. You can make money being a solo fine gardener. Let's just spread that message out. So these two, what's your name? Esther. That's Esther, solo fine gardener. So take their names. That's a good resource. We write down every time we have find someone who does that, we write them down because they're typically hard to find and full. Also, that you can go to like Foothill work programs. There's typically people who, that's where I met Carrie, that's where I met Jen. My mom went through that program. There are people there who would be interested in learning.
Lori in the back.
Hi guys, thank you very much for this talk. The last several summits that we've done, this has been a critical comment from the community of the attendees that how do we get design and maintenance, and how do we focus on this. And I have more of a comment than a question for both of you, but maybe you guys can extrapolate on this. Two things. One is you guys have the luxury of having designer in Debbie, and then the add-on bonus of in the same household having the maintenance crew. Most installations do not have that luxury. You have a contractor who is installing, and you pray that you have somebody who you can refer them to for maintenance. It is really, really hard to find companies that can take on regular, not maybe the 1 acres, but just the average residential, homeowner. So that's a huge thing for me as a designer, and also working for a landscape contractor, is we do the install, but then it's literally just hope to God they, can find somebody who can do the maintenance. And so that is always a critical thing for me as a designer. It's really disheartening to know that you're going to do this design and you're going to do this installation, and then not have maintenance even as part of that program when you're designing it and installing it. Most contractors have kind of divided themselves either into installation or maintenance. And for me as a designer, I fully believe that you have to have a maintenance person in the mix and in the discussion before you even put a shovel in the ground, or otherwise that landscape is kind of, wrought for failure. The second thing is, how do we as a community and as an industry raise the level of expertise in the client's eyes so that people are not making $15 an hour to maintain these gardens, because at $15 an hour nobody can make a living on that. And until we as an industry really raise that bar and those expectations, it's really difficult for those people of doing maintenance, because clients think that the average maintenance is the mow and blow community. And I just, that's a struggle for me. I really want to, as a community, really see how we can raise that level of expertise and expectations for the people who are maintaining these gardens. So I don't know if you guys have any comments, and how do you talk to your clients about this, this is what it takes, and is that always a struggle, or is it just have you guys, is that part of how you guys do that?
I would show them our presentation.
Okay, Jen, but that's...
No, but I think it is about educating your client. And also, as a garden designer, design a garden that's going to work for the client and be maintainable from the beginning, and installed, like we said, with quality materials, and plant spacing correctly, and that kind of things. I mean, it's kind of like you get what you pay for. And I feel like it just starts with that primary relationship between the client and the garden designer. I mean, I hate to put that on you guys, but it's kind of true. Because like so many times Amy and I have gone into gardens where we weren't maintaining it in the beginning, and it's always like playing catch up, and it never quite looks right. So I think, there's like all these organizations. There's one for garden designers, there's one for contractors, but there really isn't one for maintenance people. So I've always thought that might be a great thing to start, is raising awareness by creating a group that's just maintenance people, because it just hurts my heart when people are so terrible to mow and blow guys, because like I said, you can't really blame them. You're expecting them to do something that's, unattainable. So it's definitely an education thing. It just has to be taught more at Cabrillo and all those places.
I'm just going to add 2 more cents, which is just develop ongoing relationships, like us. Like when we have relationships with, like if you're a designer, have a maintenance crew that you like, and if you work with them in multiple gardens over the course of years, like they learn and you benefit. So like partnerships like that are super valuable. It was really advantageous because my mom and I are in the same house, but But that's what she did with her installation contractors, and then that's now what we've done with other landscape architects that we work with.
I have a lot of thoughts, so let me see if I can organize them. It seems to me that if we want sustainable landscaping throughout the valley, we need to also look at it from the standpoint of gardens that are smaller than 1 acre. And even if, there are a lot of classes being offered by the native garden people and all that on how to design your own, but the reality is we have to maintain expectations, and I saw that even within my own household. Low maintenance is not no maintenance.
That's right. Yeah.
And it seems like the shortage is on finding people who are not mow, blow, and go guys that can deal with non-grass landscaping
Yeah.
and deal with even your neighbors blowing into your yard the liquid amber balls or whatever. But there just seems to be, and as we have an aging population of people who actually have single-family homes, there's a real problem with being able to find somebody to sustain a garden that's sustainable, supposedly. And and I agree, our expectation should be that this should be there's a living wage should be made, and if they only need to come in once a month instead of once a week, you can afford to pay them more. But we need
that
the people.
point. I just want to highlight what you just said is actually really valuable. So decrease the frequency and increase the amount of time. Even if it's, instead of like 20 minutes every week, it still doesn't add up to enough time. But, an hour a month is better than 20 minutes once a week. But really,
especially
honestly,
when you
it's
travel travel time.
So that's a good strategy.
But finding people to do it is difficult. I wish some organization would have a resource of people that do
That was
that.
part of our, that's what we were saying too, was if you have a garden, you're paid to have a garden installed in your house. You can't just expect someone to take care of it. It's almost like you have to sort of become, if you can't find somebody, I'm a gardener, but I have a guy that comes, I go out there and give him, things that I need for him to do for the day. I take an active role in my garden. So I think it's telling your clients, take an active role in your garden, be interested in it.
But they still have to,
And
if they've done
still-
self-installation and
I feel like anybody working in gardens can be trained to work the way you want it. And I really believe that. We feel like we can take any crew working and make them so much better just by giving them some tips. Because really sometimes the things they do take them more time than if they did the opposite, but no one ever tells them, you don't have to do it like this, you could do this. And it's really just a mind.
So you're saying we could train our mow and blow guys to?
Yes, absolutely.
We don't have time for
Yeah, Jen and Amy will be here through lunch
Yeah.
for the turkey croissant sandwiches with avocado. So Elaine, I believe it is, you'll be able to get your question to her afterwards.
I wanted to share, there is a resource for what you were talking about, and it's called Green Gardener. And it's on the Master Gardener's website. It lists it's special training that these gardeners have gone through to conserve water, protect the soil, reduce waste, improve the health, appearance, and value of landscape, reduce urban runoff and storm water pollution from landscape maintenance activities. So go to Master Gardener's website. There is a list of these gardeners. Some do design, construction, and some do just maintenance. But it lists the ones that have gone through this training and have been certified.
Thank you. Thank you both.